1.5 inches, which is fairly substantial. So there is a boutique in Alexandria called the Full Cup that actually tried this out to see if it was physically possible to do this. And what they found is that there could only be a maximum of 10K that you could fill per cup. The rest of it had to wind up elsewhere within the bra, but it was physically possible to do. So at least, logistically,
it's
you
possible.
can do this. Now, we don't know if she actually did do this. And the fact that she wears loose clothing, of course, helped her out, being non-form-fitting. But can you imagine your cup size might have changed overnight or within a span of a few minutes from whatever it was to maybe 3 or 4 sizes bigger? I don't know, folks. I think there is a lot of sensationalism to this story. The other unfortunate part of this is that there's a lot of immigrant names here and a lot of police officers who are apparently charged with extortion of transporting cigarettes and alcohol and tobacco across state lines without paying sales tax. TikTok Liquors, which is a very prominent liquor store here in Prince George's County, was implicated. And Mr. Amrik S. Melhi and his wife Ravindra Melhi are just among the 2 names of what appears to be Asian American descent that were implicated. And the last point I'll make about this is that Prince George's County does have a unique distinction, and I hope it hangs on to that distinction because it's important. It's a very important distinction to have in the country that proves to the rest of the country that it is possible to be of immigrant background or to be African American and still live one of the most affluent lifestyles that you can live. So often in the Washington, D.C. area, we hear about everybody else, and we don't hear about the immigrants doing so well or the African American community doing so well. So as awful as this news is for Prince George's County, if it brings about significant change, I think overall it's got to be a good thing.
New County Executive Rashawn Baker, who is going to take the office from December 6th, is promising that he'll clean it all up.
I hope so.
And we sincerely hope he does. This is really shameful to be, trying to collect everything that you can before you leave that seat of power.
How's this for a headline? Women and the myth about money. For years, in fact for decades, I would say that women have been accused of not handling their finances well. In fact, major banks like Citigroup and Wachovia have had special departments to guide women with their finances. Yeah, I thought this was an interesting story that the Washington Post did, because in this age of career women and women who are hitting the market in droves, I was surprised to see a story like this appear. But as it turns out, women have a complicated relationship with money, and it has a lot to do with our spending habits, which we're notorious for. In fact, shows like Sex and the City really didn't help because Carrie Bradshaw, as many of you will remember, spent $40,000 on Malono Blahniks shoes rather than save for her condo, which she should have so that she could buy it. Well, the reality is that actually holds somewhat true. Women 25 to 34 actually do spend similar levels of their money on clothing and on looking good and being fashionable, which is why the fashion industry survives so very well. But there's also some myths there, which was the point of the article, in that women actually are fairly savvy when it comes to investing. Women might actually be savvier than men when it comes to investing, because a lot of them do invest over the course of their lifetimes in stocks, and they're quite good at it. Here's a statistic that women really should pay attention to. According to Transamerica Center for Retirement, a single woman, should have saved $500,000 by the time that she retires to ensure herself a good lifestyle into her later years. That's a fairly big number and a fairly ambitious number for women to save to, especially if they're spending at the rates that they're spending. So there are new books on the market which I'm sure will make fantastic Christmas gifts if you know a woman who likes to spend a lot. How about this one? Does this make my assets look fat? This is the 30th most popular book in the money management for women category, according to Amazon.com. Or here's another one. Shoe Jimmy Choo. Jimmy Choo is yet another shoe manufacturer. So I think you're going to see a flood of these kinds of books, especially with our financial crisis, aimed at women and saving money.
I want to tell you, women are very intuitive. So when you're intuitive, you can be pretty good in the stock market.
Actually, there is a point about that in the article as well, that while men, by volume, trade a lot more,
Yeah.
What they do is they go after the new, sexy, sensational stock, whereas women are far more maybe timid in the kinds of stock or less risk-prone, but consequently they actually make more money in the stock market than men.
Actually, it is sad because women are not making as much money because they believe in saving. And when you save, you need to put it in the bank, but today they only give you a 0% interest. And that's lucky if you get it. You know, at times they charge you for saving the money if it is less than $5,000.
Apparently, it's the single women who don't save their money as well as they should, because when it comes to managing a household, as many of you know, women run the finances of a married household, and therefore they understand finances and saving money a lot better than single women do. So, single women, heed the warning and save the money.
Folks, you must have heard a lot of rumblings lately where people are suggesting, you know, the states have budget problems, so is the federal government, that the museum should start charging the entrance fee. Now, there are a lot of private museums. For instance, Newseum is in town here, which is run by a foundation.
The Spy Museum.
Yeah, and they charge you some money. And there's Spy Museum, Wax Museum, and the others. And they're saying, well, why not we charge money to let people come in and see the museums? I'm against it. I really think the federal government is doing a great job by making sure it is free. What do you think?
The Smithsonian actually has been the example, if not even to our own country, but to the rest of the world, for inviting tourists into D.C. and giving them a free showcase, if you will, to the country.
That's right.
And it is a standout. The mall itself is so popular because tourists come from around the world to visit these museums. They are world class, especially the Air and Space Museum, which has a huge draw on the Federal Mall. I think it would be a shame. I think it would say to the rest of the world that America is really hurting for us to start putting fees on the museums. Granted, they are tremendous. They require a lot of maintenance, and probably a hefty revenue needs to be generated to keep those museums running well.
Enormous number of kids come from all over the United States and even abroad to come and see the Air and Space Museum and some of the other museums. And we here at Darshan want to make sure that we tell all of those incoming Congress and the Senate, don't even think of creating revenues out of Smithsonian museums. We love them here, and you understand the population that comes to see it, that creates an enormous amount of economy for Washington, D.C. So please, don't go there.
Leave them alone.
Yes.
Folks, every year, the Global Language Monitor comes out with its list of most popular words for that year. Last year, you might remember a couple of words made the list: Twitter,
yes,